His presidency began under the cloud of an election dispute. It ended with the nation at war and in economic distress.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
The bitter aftertaste from the 2000 election lingered through the opening months of his presidency. Then came September 11th, 2001. In grief and anger, the nation briefly united behind the president.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
It was a defining moment for the Bush presidency. He became a man with a mission to keep America safe.
The United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
Within a year, plans were underway to deploy American troops on a second front. With his popularity riding high, George W. Bush made the case for military action to remove Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein.
If we wait for threats to fully materialize, we will have waited too long.
After decades of talk about deterrence, preemptive war became an option. Soon, American troops were on the ground in Iraq. As the death toll rose, the president's approval rating began to fall. Experts in national security say history may not treat the war effort kindly. Anthony Cordesman is with the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington.
But I don't think this administration, frankly, is going to be well received. It made too many mistakes. It relied too much on ideological goals.
The war was raging when Hurricane Katrina struck the U.S. Gulf Coast. Government was unprepared to handle the crisis when the levees protecting New Orleans, Louisiana, broke. President Bush got his first look at the devastation from Air Force One as he flew back to Washington from a vacation at his Texas ranch. 2 weeks later, he addressed the nation from a New Orleans city square.
Americans have every right to expect a more effective response in a time of emergency. When the federal government fails to meet such an obligation, I, as president, am responsible for the problem and for the solution.
Ken Walsh is the veteran White House correspondent for U.S. News and World Report. He says the public response to the government bungling of Katrina was devastating.
People felt that, well, how could we leave these people stranded in the stadium, on the rooftops, and not get help to them? We're supposed to be sort of the superpower that knows how to do things in a crisis. That image just evaporated.
The devastation caused by Katrina and the ongoing military operation in Iraq overshadowed news of perhaps the Bush administration's biggest accomplishment abroad.
This crisis is one that can be arrested.
That crisis is AIDS. In 2003, Mr. Bush launched a program to fight the disease in Africa and elsewhere, eventually helping roughly 10 million people. Walsh says it may be Mr. Bush's most positive legacy.
This assistance to Africa to fight AIDS and HIV has been a big success, and President Bush hasn't gotten a lot of credit for it.
As he approached his final days in office, the man who once prided himself on seldom showing his emotions turned nostalgic.
When the time comes on January the 20th, Laura and I will return home to Texas with treasured memories of our time here, with profound gratitude for the honor of serving this amazing country.
He will travel to Texas on one of the military jets that ferried him around the nation and the world, but it will not carry the code name Air Force One. That designation is reserved for a plane carrying a sitting President of the United States. Paula Wolfson, VOA News, the White House.